So we've just met this guy in Uxbridge while they're putting all the flags up. Yeah. This guy has now been made homeless because he was living in a property that the people have now took back to house immigrants.
Yeah, so basically what happened is, so my name's Anthony, I'm 31 years old. I was living in a property with an agency called Homeward Management. I was supposed to get evicted through the court because my contract expired, but what happened was I've gone to work, I actually work, I go drama school and that stuff like that, and I've come back home. They've told me that two guys in turbans and the landlord have come round, deleted my pin off the front door, and they've changed the locks on my room door, moved someone in already. So that's what.
And you've been to the council today?
I've been to the council, innit?
Today?
They
Don't want to give you paperwork.
And you've got to get to Fort Park to work tomorrow, and you're homeless.
I'm homeless, I work at my drama school, and they still won't help me, innit?
Yeah, but they can house all these legal... and he's English, he's British.
I saw a lot of them in their council today.
A working taxpayer. This is a working taxpayer.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
So that's my story, innit? Yeah.
And he's homeless now.
And I was living in Barnsley for 5 years for the last 5 years. My wife left me last November, innit? Hence why I'm back in London, innit? So I've been on and off homeless since I was 16 years old.
What did the council say to you? What
did the council say to me? So what they expect a homeless person to do from England is they need to upload loads of documents, bank statements, proof of homelessness. They want you to put your expenditure.
Jimmy give him some money, he's fed him. He's going to stay at mine tonight. Ask the people, we're going to look after him. Everyone come together with community.
Go on, carry on.
So yeah, basically what they expect a young homeless person in England to do right now is they expect them to upload loads of documents to prove who they are. So I have to prove who I am. Apparently they need proof of who I am. They probably don't believe that I'm from England or
So
then they want you to upload bank statements. They want you to upload a tenancy. They want you to upload proof of homelessness.
What they give you?
I can't get out of my bag now, guys, but they've given me a sheet of paper to fill out all my expenditure, how much I'm earning, what my outgoings. So what confuses me is the outgoings. Is that I'm homeless, so what outgoings do I actually fucking have? But that's what they want me to do.
But they want all this from you.
They want all this from me.
But yet these can come over and not even show their identity or who they are.
And get hotels.
Yeah.
So that's me, innit? Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
In Uxbridge, a story has surfaced that cuts to the heart of Britain's ongoing housing crisis and its uneasy intersection with migration policy. Anthony, a 31-year-old local resident, says he has been made homeless by his landlord to make way for newly arrived migrants. According to Anthony, the eviction was swift and brutal. One morning he left for work as usual. By the time he returned, the locks and PIN codes on his building had been changed. His belongings were inaccessible. And most shockingly, migrants had already been moved into the property he once called home. Anthony's ordeal underscores what many critics describe as a system that is bending over backwards to accommodate arrivals while leaving long-time residents to fend for themselves. When he went to the local council for help, he was told he would need to upload extensive documentation, bank account statements, his tenancy agreement, and even detailed expenditure records. By contrast, Anthony claims, the migrants who replaced him had reportedly disposed of all their identification, a practice that has been flagged by MPs and watchdogs as a glaring loophole in the asylum process. The incident comes at a time when Uxbridge and other towns across the country are grappling with visible tensions over housing allocation, migrant accommodation, and the perception of unfair treatment between established residents and those newly arrived. Critics argue that the rules governing landlords, councils, and government housing contracts are ripe for abuse. Meanwhile, advocates for migrants stress the need for humane shelter and fair treatment, warning against scapegoating individuals caught up in broader geopolitical displacement. Anthony's case is not just about one man losing his flat. It reflects a wider national debate about fairness, responsibility, and the balance between compassion and accountability. With housing pressures mounting, councils strapped for resources, and migration at the forefront of political discourse, the question facing Britain is whether stories like Anthony's will remain isolated incidents, or whether they represent a systemic failure playing out in communities up and down the country.
Keir Starmer, and he stood with JD Vance and he was asked about free speech in this country, and he gave a nice little speech about the tradition that we have here, and this is the home of free speech.
Yes.
And yet a few weeks later, we see you being arrested for putting a couple of posts out there. Now, some people may agree with those, the sentiment of the post. Some people may think they're a bit harsh. They're not illegal, or they shouldn't be illegal in a free speech country.
As I say, the police arrested me for those tweets, but they have never arrested it. And I think this is true to say. I could be wrong. There might be something out there somewhere. But to my knowledge, they have never arrested a trans activist for tweets sent to feminists, you know? So, I mean, I know it's a cliche by now, two-tier policing, but that is exactly what it is.
And the response has... obviously what's happened to you is horrible, and Tuesday morning I think it was, like, waking up, everybody messaging each other pretty much as soon as you put out your Substack.
Yeah, I've never had such a reaction.
And sort of universal condemnation, and on front pages of the British newspapers, and also big news in America as well. America seems to be quite focused on this free speech issue within the UK. What's it like, because now you're living there, what's it like as you look at what's going on back here in the UK?
Oh, the UK has a terrible reputation in America at the moment. It's seen as just out of control, close to chaos. But their first experience of the UK was to see a comedy writer arrested for tweeting. You know, and if Starmer thinks that that's a good message to be sending out in the world, out to the world, he's even more in an echo chamber than I thought he was.
Are you surprised by the reaction? Is the silver lining that people might actually start waking up to arguably this threat to free speech in this country?
Yeah, I know, but you know, I mean, I know GB News and other kind of, let's say, conservative outlets think free speech is the big aspect of this, but it really isn't. It's women's rights. You know, women are losing their single-sex spaces, they're losing their safety, they're losing their ability to speak. I believe there's a lot more people who agree with me than we think, and the reason that we don't see that support is because people are terrified. They're terrified of the police.
Yeah, well, but you also had, like, Malcolm Gladwell spoke this week, and he basically said, yes, I did think that men shouldn't be in women's sports, but I was afraid. And I think that's why it does come back to this fear, and it does come back to free speech, because if we had real free speech, perhaps this issue would have been addressed earlier.
But my point is, can you think of anything that is dangerous to speak about than women's rights? Women's rights should not be dangerous to speak about. Do you know what I mean? I would understand if it was something to do with, right, even Palestine, right? But on women's rights, it's so basic. It's such a basic thing. Women fought for single-sex spaces over 100 years ago, and for over the last 10 years, they were basically dismantled by stealth. You know, so I just think that, like, it's not so much a free speech issue. It's more like, will you stand up for your wife? Will you stand up for your mum and for your daughter and your sister? Will you stand up for them, you know? And so, yeah.
But do you think it is changing? Because it feels like, you know, obviously you have the Supreme Court's decision, and now that's being backed up. And they're going to have to basically implement it now.
No, I'll tell you why.
Human Rights Commission.
I'll tell you why. I mean, you've seen what's happened since the Supreme Court decision. A lot of people don't even know the Supreme Court decision happened. One of the problems with trans rights activism is that whenever people talk about it, the language is so unclear and obscure and obtuse that people are never on steady ground when they're talking about it. Like trans people. What does that mean? What does it mean? No one knows. I've never heard the same definition of trans people twice, you know? And the only definition you can get is the one this dizzy policeman told me, which was, you know, it's a person who feels this and that. How can you base law on a feeling, on a subjective feeling? How can you? You can't. But the police are trying. And as a result, a lot of decent women have been thrown in jail cells. This is, you know, it's not just me who's suffering from this kind of overreach. More importantly, it's ordinary people who do not have the backing of the Free Speech Union, who do not have the backing of all the people I've made friends with over the last few years. They're isolated. They don't know what their rights are. They're confused by the issue, and then the police swoop.